I'm Brandy, this is Hound Dog Hollow, and today I'm going to be doing a book review on A Witch's Bible by Janet and Stuart Farrar. This is a seminal work, or considered a seminal work, in the pagan community. I bought this book many years ago, and it's actually a combination of two books, okay? So the two books are The Sabbaths and Rites for Birth, Marriage, and Death, and then part two is, hold on, what's the title of the second part? It's not the Wiccan Path. It's two different books. And the second part is way shorter. Oh, maybe I missed it. Hand Fasting, Requiem, Bibliography, Index. So they're just literally two books bound together. Principles, Rituals, and Beliefs in Modern Witchcraft. Those are the two books. Okay, so this is not a one-on-one book. This is a very dense philosophical text, and it's based on their pagan tradition, which is a very structured, initiatory, traditional witchcraft tradition, right? So I bought the book because it was back like many years ago. I don't even know if my son was born, where I was having like a revival about like, I'm gonna, I'm finally a nurse and I have money and I can buy books and I'm going to, get all these resources that I always wished that I could, but I couldn't because I was broke. And it was one of my initial hauls, even before I started getting boxes, long before I started getting boxes. And I saw the images in the middle of like, naked people and just, whoa. I was like, I'm not going to be in a coven. None of this is applicable to me. And then I was called to just take it with me on a camping trip, probably when my son was 2, so like 4 or 5 years ago. And I read this whole thing cover to cover in 2 days. And it's a big book. For whatever reason, I was ready at that point. And it has a lot of really good information. And it's not the kind of information that you get in 101 books, because it's really getting into the theory and the philosophy of pagan practice and why are we doing what we're doing and what does it mean and where is the history of this, and it's heavily referenced. There's a ton of information. There's just good historical, like this is from here and this is from here and this is from this legend, and it originates here, about each of the Sabbaths, about birth rites, marriage rites, death rites. And then the second part is like initiations, which I read it like that's very interesting, and you could pull ideas for what you want to do with your practice, but then the rest of it is just like on ethics and healing and reincarnation and protection, just how to what's the rationale of witchcraft. That's excellent. What is the rationale, the different levels of existence, ethics, myth, ritual, symbolism, sex, the mansions, running a coven, being naked, clairvoyance, divination, healing, astral projection, dream work, spells, tools, and living with the land, and just so many references and heavily researched. This is a really good book. 5 out of 5 stars for me. I highly recommend it. This is not a beginner book though. This is for when you're diving into, so like the way they teach us in nursing school and the way that you should learn magic and the way that eventually when I teach, because that's where I'm going with this eventually. But obviously when I'm called to. Right now I'm a student, both in grad school, and I've been taking classes with other witches in the community and just really doing my best to learn, taking conferences, taking a step back from educating others to just grow myself this year. That has been my goal. So when you first learn a topic, when you're a baby witch and you learn the fundamentals, I don't want to be condescending, but when you're a new witch and you're learning the fundamentals, you learn the fundamentals and you practice them for a time. And then you should start diving into deeper topics, and you're going to re-encounter the fundamentals in a different way, and we call that spiraling back. And you should spiral back at least 3 times on any one given subject to be competent or proficient in it. So for example, if you get your first witchy book and you learn about the elements, right? You learn about the elements and what they can do and what their general idea and purpose and strengths are, right? And then you do some work and you do some reading and you're journaling and you decide like, oh my God, I really, really, really want to dive into astrology. It's really calling me. And one of the fundamental building blocks of the astrological energies that we consider the zodiac is elements. It's what gives fire signs their particular manner of existence. Again, it's with their modality and it's with their polarity and it's with this duality. There's a lot more to it than that, but you're going to re-encounter your fundamentals as segments of different topics like divination, like astrology, like spell work. You're going to re-encounter those, but in a deeper way. So you learn the basics and then you learn like a more advanced application of the basics, and then you practice on like that, and you deepen your practice and you work through it and you put in the work, you do the practice, and then you come back to this same fundamental. Either you review it again as if you were a new student and you learn something new from it just because you're reviewing the fundamentals, which is also excellent. I highly recommend that. Or you come across like a deeper dive into one aspect or philosophy or rationale or ethics, and you learn about that topic in a whole different way, right? So let's just say spell work. You learn, the first way you might learn is that if I light a green candle with an intention, that I have dressed and that I have like a sigil and a power word and a piece of pyrite, and man, I can make stuff happen. I can have abundance. It's really working for me. Excellent. And then like maybe the next layer is like, oh, I'm going to do this abundance spell on the new moon in Taurus because that is really good energy. And maybe this time I'm going to plant a plant because this is a long-term goal. And as the plant grows, my goal grows. And so like as this beautiful tree that I love and nurture is symbolic of this long-term abundance goal that I'm going to love and nurture. And so that's a deeper practice, deeper layer of the practice. But then you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to learn about the rationale of why am I doing it? So the law of similarities, the I forget even how they put it. It's been the rationale. So just, it even talks about the theory of levels and the theory of polarity. So the theory of levels describes the structure of the universe. The theory of polarity describes its activity, and the structure and activity are inseparable. So, and they're saying it's oversimplified. So, and then it's hard for me to just blurt it out there. I think I will cover it on a different thing because already this book review is getting really long. Suffice it to say, this is a deep dive into ethics, philosophy, and just why the heck are we doing what we're doing? Why does any of this make sense? So I do recommend it. Here are some caveats. This was written in the 70s and 80s by some people who are Caucasian. They practice in a very traditional sect of Wiccanism. They're Wiccans. They're Gardenian or Alexandrian witches. I can't remember which. They're also white. They're also heterosexual and cisgender. And so they did believe in having even numbers of male and female, and that the polarity, and that the high priestess had these roles and the high priest had these roles. And so while I will say that it is a bit dated, I will not say that it is not inclusive. But it is written from a very Eurocentric, cisgender, heterosexual point of view of life. So I do recommend you still read it because the rationale doesn't really have any gender, right? Rationale doesn't have any sexuality. There's going to be good information that you're going to deepen your practice with. but just take some of it with a grain of salt, because as we evolve as a people, and as we learn better in society, and as we have more voices of color and indigenous people sharing our stories from our mouths, then the whole conversation around paganism and witchcraft changes to better reflect the view of the many instead of the people who are lucky enough to be published. And we already know that historically, many pagan publishers preferred white Eurocentric paganism. It's what was almost entirely published for until recently, until like the last decade maybe. So there is always that. However, I still give this 5 out of 5. I highly recommend it. I feel like if you can take a deep dive into it, you won't be sorry. You'll get a lot of information. And so I highly recommend it to you. I'm going to leave it in the link below. This is not one that I'm going to get rid of. I refer to this all the time. This is excellent. And I would love to see something like this attempted in the modern way, with a diverse cast of authors just contributing to a deep dive like this, with a more inclusive, gender neutral, racial and culturally sensitive take. That would be like amazing. And maybe I'll send like a message to some of these authors that I've been following, just like, because witch talk, and I can't really say, I'm not on TikTok, but some of our social media, which is where so many of our witches are getting their information, because back in the day when I was a kid, there was just like the library and that's where you got your information. Or a person, which I didn't know a person, so it was a library for me. You aren't necessarily getting this deep dive information. These books are few and far between. And so while it's not perfect, it is the only book that is so comprehensive in theory, philosophy, ethics, and practice. So I highly recommend it to you. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Check this out. Bye, guys.